They say you can't choose your family. At 68 years old, sitting in a lawyer's office with documents that would change everything, I learned that wasn't true. You absolutely can choose your family. And sometimes, you have to. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the moment that shattered my world, my 70th birthday party, in the home I'd lived in for 42 years, surrounded by the children I'd raised alone after their father died. I never thought I'd be the kind of mother whose children would plan her future behind her back. Then again, I never thought I'd be standing in my own kitchen, frozen with a cake knife in my hand, listening to my 3 children discuss when to put me in a nursing home. My name is Margaret Chen, though everyone calls me Maggie. I spent 40 years teaching 5th grade at Roosevelt Elementary, shaping young minds and wiping young noses. I was the teacher who stayed late to tutor struggling students, who spent my own money on classroom supplies, who never missed a parent conference even when I was running a fever. I raised 3 children on a teacher's salary after my husband David died of a heart attack when our youngest was only 7. I lived frugally, saved carefully, and built a life in a modest 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood that's now considered desirable. I thought I'd done everything right. The evening of my 70th birthday started beautifully. My eldest, James, arrived first with his wife Lauren and their 2 teenagers. James is a senior vice president at a tech company now, wearing suits that cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. My middle child, Patricia, came next, a corporate lawyer, always checking her phone, always somewhere else even when she's in the room. And my youngest, Kevin, the baby I held while grieving his father, now 33 and working in finance, showed up with a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly water bill. They were unusually enthusiastic that evening, laughing, taking photos, complimenting the house. "Mom, you've kept this place in such great shape," James said. And I felt a warm glow of pride. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe the distance I'd felt growing between us over the past decade was just my imagination. I'd made all their favorite foods pot roast for James, Patricia's preferred Caesar salad, Kevin's beloved apple pie from scratch. The dining room table was set with the good china, the same plates we'd used for every birthday and holiday since David passed. I wanted everything to be perfect. After dinner, I excused myself to the kitchen to prepare the birthday cake. It was a small chocolate cake. I lived alone now, no need for anything elaborate. I was in the pantry looking for the candles when I heard their voices drift in from the dining room. They must have thought I was farther away, maybe in the basement or upstairs. "So when are we going to talk to her about it?" That was Patricia, her lawyer voice crisp and businesslike. "Tonight seems wrong. It's her birthday," Kevin said, though his tone was uncertain. "Look, we've been putting this off for months. James, always the leader, always the one who made decisions. She rattles around in here alone. It's not safe." My hand closed around the box of candles. Not safe? I'd lived here for 4 decades. Dr. Morrison said her heart condition could deteriorate any time, Patricia added. What if she falls? What if she has another episode and no one finds her for days? I'd had a minor cardiac incident 6 months ago, atrial fibrillation, managed with medication. I'd only told them because I needed Kevin to drive me home from the hospital. I thought they'd understood when I said it was under control. The Brookside facility has an opening. Lauren's voice now. My daughter-in-law, who'd always been polite but distant. I toured it last week. Very nice. They have activities, nursing care, on-site, everything she'd need. How much? Kevin, always practical about money. About $5,000 a month. But we wouldn't be paying it for long. Patricia paused, and I heard the clink of a wine glass. Mom's heart condition is serious. Doctor. Morrison told me privately, as a professional courtesy, that patients with her specific arrhythmia typically have maybe 5 years, probably less given her age. The candle box slipped from my fingers, but I caught it before it hit the floor. My hands were shaking. So, we sell the house, use that money for the facility. James, always solving problems. The market's hot right now. This neighborhood has gotten trendy. We could get at least 800,000, maybe more. Split 3 ways. That's almost 300 each after her care is paid for. It's not like she needs this much space, Kevin said. And honestly, maintaining it is getting hard for her. I noticed the gutters are sagging, and there's a crack in the driveway. She can't handle this anymore. We're doing her a favor, Patricia said firmly. She'll be safer, better cared for, and we won't have to worry about getting that call in the middle of the night. When do we tell her? Lauren asked. Let her have her birthday, James said. We'll sit her down next week. Present it as the caring thing to do. Which it is. We're not bad people for wanting our mother safe and well cared for. I stood in that pantry, my heart pounding so hard I wondered if this was it, if they'd finally get their wish and I'd just collapse right there. But I didn't. I took slow, deep breaths like my cardiologist had taught me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I counted the candles. 70. One for each year of a life they'd already written the ending to. When I walked back into the dining room carrying the cake, I was smiling. I've spent 40 years managing classrooms full of children. I know how to control my face. They sang "Happy Birthday" enthusiastically. I blew out the candles. They clapped. What did you wish for, Mom? Kevin asked. Oh, you know, I said, cutting neat slices. The usual things. Health, happiness, time with family. They left within an hour. James had an early meeting. Patricia needed to prepare for a deposition. Kevin was meeting friends. They each kissed my cheek on the way out. Love you, Mom, they said, one after another, like a rehearsed line. I stood in the doorway waving as their expensive cars pulled away from my sagging gutters and cracked driveway. Then I closed the door, walked to the living room, and sat in David's old recliner, the one I'd kept all these years, because sometimes I swear I can still smell his cologne on it. And I cried. Not quietly, not gently. I sobbed the way I'd sobbed when the hospital called to tell me David was gone. When I was 38 years old with 3 children under 12 and a mortgage and a future that had just imploded. I cried because I'd heard them. I'd heard them reduce my life to a balance sheet, my worth to a monthly facility fee, my remaining years to a timeline that would minimize their inconvenience. I cried because they'd called me a burden, even if they'd dressed it up in concern. I cried because the children I'd raised alone, the babies I'd nursed and the toddlers I'd taught to read and the teenagers I'd scraped together college tuition for, had just planned my removal like I was an outdated appliance. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't call them. I didn't confront them. I didn't give them the chance to gaslight me with their version of love. Instead, 3 days later, I called my cardiologist. Dr. Morrison, I said when she picked up, did you tell my daughter Patricia that I have 5 years to live? There was a long pause. Mrs. Chen, I would never discuss your medical information with anyone without your permission. That would be a violation of HIPAA. What exactly did Patricia tell you? She said you told her, as a professional courtesy, that patients with my condition typically live 5 years. Dr. Morrison sighed. I never said that. Your atrial fibrillation is well controlled with medication. You could live another 20 years if you take care of yourself. Did Patricia claim I gave her specific information about your prognosis? Yes. I'm going to have to file a report about this. That's a serious breach of ethics if she's falsely claiming I disclosed your information. Mrs. Chen, are you all right? Is something going on? I thanked her and hung up. So Patricia had lied, or exaggerated, or somehow convinced herself of a convenient timeline that made their plans more palatable. That same afternoon, I had what my children would later call another cardiac episode. But this one was different. This time, I didn't call Kevin for a ride. I called an Uber, and when the driver asked if I was okay because I was holding my chest, I told him I was fine, just needed to get to St. Mary's Hospital. The ER was busy, and I sat in the waiting room for 90 minutes before they could see me. The pain in my chest was real enough, though the EKG showed it was probably stress-induced angina rather than another arrhythmia event. They admitted me for observation anyway, given my history. I was alone in that hospital room for 6 hours before I used the patient phone to call James. Hi, honey, I said when he answered. I'm at St. Mary's. I had some chest pain. They're keeping me overnight for observation. Mom, why didn't you call sooner? I'll come right now. No, it's late. I'm fine. They just want to monitor me. You can come in the morning if you want. Of course I want. Mom, you scared me. I'll be there at 8. He showed up at 8:15 with coffee from Starbucks, my order wrong, vanilla instead of caramel. But it was the thought that counted. Patricia arrived at 9. Between court appearances, Kevin came during his lunch break. They fussed appropriately. They talked to my doctors. They took turns sitting with me. And the whole time, I watched them perform concern, knowing what I knew. But someone else was watching me too. Her name was Luisa Reyes, and she was my nurse for the day shift. She was maybe 40, with kind eyes and hands that were gentle when she checked my IV. Originally from the Philippines, she'd been in the States for 12 years, working double shifts to support her 2 kids and send money back to her parents in Manila. "You have a beautiful family," she said after my children left, nodding at the flowers James had brought. "Do I?" I said before I could stop myself. Luisa paused, her hand on my blood pressure cuff. "Mrs. Chen, are you okay? I mean, beyond the medical reason you're here?" And maybe it was because I was tired. Maybe it was because she was a stranger who had nothing to gain from my answer. Maybe it was because she'd called me by my name instead of Mom or the patient in 304. But I told her, "Not everything, just enough. They're planning to put me in a nursing home," I said quietly. "They want to sell my house. They think I'm dying soon." Luisa finished taking my blood pressure elevated, she noted, and sat down in the chair my children had just vacated. "Are you dying soon?" "Doctor, Morrison says I could have 20 more years. And do you want to go to a nursing home?" "I want to stay in my home. The home I shared with my husband. The home where I raised them. The home I've earned." Luisa nodded slowly. "My mother is 73. She lives alone in our family home in Quezon City. My siblings keep telling me we should convince her to move, that it's too much for her, but she says the same thing you just did. It's her home. She earned it." "What do you tell your siblings?" "I tell them that as long as she's safe and happy, it's her choice, not ours." She stood up, checking her watch. "Mrs. Chen, I don't know your children, but I know that sometimes people make decisions for the wrong reasons, even when they convince themselves those reasons are right." That conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes, but it planted something, a seed of understanding that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed, that my home, my autonomy, my remaining years, however many they might be, were mine to choose. I was discharged the next day with adjusted medication and instructions to reduce stress. As if. But I started making changes. Small ones at first. I hired a handyman to fix the gutters and fill the crack in the driveway. I had the house professionally cleaned. I went through David's belongings, the ones I'd kept in boxes in the garage for 24 years, and donated most of them, keeping only a few precious items. And I started volunteering at St. Mary's Hospital twice a week, delivering flowers and books to patients. It was where I kept running into Luisa during her shifts. "Mrs. Chen, you're back," she said the first time she saw me in my volunteer uniform. "Call me Maggie," I told her. And yes, I needed something to do besides sit in my big, empty, apparently burdensome house. She laughed, and we started talking, really talking. I learned that her son, Miguel, was 15 and wanted to be a nurse like his mom. Her daughter, Sophia, was 12 and brilliant at math. Luisa was working toward her RN license, studying late at night after her shifts, but it was hard with 2 kids and elderly parents depending on her income. "The application essay is killing me," she confessed one day in the hospital cafeteria. "English is my second language, and I don't know how to make myself sound impressive on paper. I taught English for 40 years, I said. "Let me look at it." That became our routine. Twice a week, after my volunteer shift, Luisa and I would sit in the cafeteria and work on her nursing school applications. I edited her essays, helped her highlight her experience, showed her how to tell her story in a way that would make admissions committees see her brilliance. And in return, she told me stories about her kids, showed me photos, invited me to Miguel's soccer games and Sophia's math competition. When Sophia won second place in the regional mathletics championship, I was there cheering louder than anyone, and Sophia ran to hug me first, before her own mother. "Tita Maggie," she shouted. Tita, the Filipino term of respect for an honorary aunt. I did it. Did you see? I saw. I saw a child who lit up when she achieved something, who wanted to share her joy with someone who cared. The way my own children used to, before they grew up and grew away. My children, meanwhile, were getting impatient. 3 months after my birthday, James invited me to Sunday dinner at his house. Patricia and Kevin were already there when I arrived. Lauren made pot roast my recipe, I noticed, though not quite right. After dinner, they sat me down in the living room. James held a folder. "Mom, we need to talk about your future," he began. "My future?" I said pleasantly. "I'm quite happy with my present, thank you." "Mom, please." Patricia, using her reasonable voice. "We're worried about you. You're living alone in that big house. Your health is fragile." "My health is fine. Dr. Morrison says I could live another 20 years. They exchanged glances. "Mom," James continued, "we've been looking at some excellent senior living facilities, nursing homes, senior living communities," he corrected. "Places where you'd have people around, activities, medical care, on-site if you need it." "I don't need it, but you might." Kevin leaned forward. "Mom, we just want you to be safe, and the house is a lot for you to manage. I had the gutters fixed, and the driveway. The house is perfectly maintained. It's not just about maintenance," Patricia said. "It's about you being alone. What if something happens? Like when I went to the hospital with chest pain and sat alone for 6 hours before calling any of you." Silence. James cleared his throat. "Mom, that's not fair, isn't it? I called you after I'd already been admitted and stabilized, because I knew you were busy, because I didn't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Kevin said, and I almost laughed at the irony. "Then why are we having this conversation?" James opened his folder. "Mom, we've done some research. Brookside Senior Living has an opening. It's a beautiful facility. $5,000 a month." "Yes, I know." Lauren toured it. They looked shocked that I knew. "Good. We can afford it," James said quickly. "Between the three of us." "No." "Mom," I said no. "I'm not going to a nursing home. I'm not selling my house. I'm staying exactly where I am. Please be reasonable," Patricia said. "We're trying to help you. Help me, or help yourselves to my house's equity." Patricia's face went white. Kevin looked at his shoes. James at least had the decency to meet my eyes. "Mom, that's not what this is about. Isn't it? I heard you. At my birthday party. All of you, planning my future, calculating the sale price of my home, discussing how long I'd likely survive so you could figure out the math." The silence was deafening. "Mom," James finally said, "we were just talking about options. You were talking about my death like it was a real estate opportunity. You were planning to commit me to a facility against my will so you could sell my home. And you convinced yourself it was for my own good." "It is for your own good." Patricia stood up, angry now. "You're being stubborn and selfish. We're trying to ensure you're cared for, and you're throwing it back in our faces." "I'm being cared for," I said quietly, "just not by any of you." I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out. I'd driven myself there. My license was perfectly valid, my reflexes fine, my vision corrected with glasses. I drove myself home to my big, supposedly burdensome house, and I sat in David's recliner and made a decision. The next week, I met with Robert Harrison, the attorney who'd handled David's estate and my will. He was semi-retired now but still took appointments for old clients. "Maggie," he said warmly, "it's been years. What can I do for you? I need to change my will." He pulled out a notepad. "All right. What changes are we making?" I took a deep breath. "Currently, my estate is divided equally among my 3 children. The house, my retirement, savings, my life insurance, everything split 3 ways. Yes, I remember. I want to change that. I want to leave each of them $25,000, enough to cover my funeral expenses with a little extra. That's it." Robert's pen stopped moving. "And the rest of your estate?" "I want to establish a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, particularly those from immigrant families or those pursuing careers in nursing or education. Maggie, your estate is worth quite a bit. Between the house and your savings and insurance, we're talking about close to $1 million. You're essentially disinheriting your children. I'm leaving them exactly what they're owed for being my children. $25,000 each. The rest goes to people who actually deserve it." Robert was quiet for a moment. "Maggie, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Family dynamics are complicated, and decisions made in anger. I'm not angry, I said, and I realized it was true. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done pretending that biology creates obligation. My children don't want a mother. They want an inheritance. So they'll get one, just not the one they're expecting. Who will administer this scholarship fund? I'd like Luisa Reyes to be on the board. She's a friend. I smiled. Actually, she's more than that. She's family, the kind you choose. Robert drafted the new will. I signed it, had it witnessed, made it legal. And then I went home and lived my life. For the next 7 years, I did exactly what I wanted. I volunteered at the hospital. I attended Miguel's high school graduation and cried when he announced he'd been accepted to nursing school. I helped Sophia prepare for her college entrance exams and cheered when she got a full ride to MIT for mathematics. Luisa finished her RN program, and I was there at her pinning ceremony, sitting next to her parents who'd flown in from the Philippines for the occasion. Her mother hugged me afterward. "Thank you," she said in careful English, "for taking care of my daughter." "She took care of me first," I said. My children visited occasionally. Dutiful monthly dinners, obligatory holiday appearances. They'd stopped pushing the nursing home idea after I'd confronted them, but the damage was done. We were polite strangers, going through the motions of family. Meanwhile, Luisa's family became my family. I was Tita Maggie to Sophia and Miguel. I was at their dinner table most Sundays. I was the one Luisa called when she got her first RN position. I was the one Sophia texted photos to from MIT. I was the one Miguel asked to come to his white coat ceremony when he started nursing school. I was loved. Not obligated. Not tolerated. Loved. My heart condition stayed stable. Dr. Morrison was right. I had years left in me. I took my medications. I walked every morning. I ate reasonably well. I lived. And then, at 77, I had a real cardiac event. Not stress. Not a scare. The real thing. Miguel, ironically, was the one working in the ER when the ambulance brought me in. Tita Maggie. His face went pale. "What happened?" I said, struggling to breathe. "This might be it, sweetheart." It wasn't. They stabilized me, put in a pacemaker, adjusted my medications again. But it was a wake-up call. My children came to the hospital, of course. They sat with me. They talked to my doctors. And when I was discharged, James tried again. "Mom, please. This is serious. You can't live alone anymore. What if this had happened at home? You could have died." "It happened at the grocery store," I said. I collapsed in the produce section. Living in a nursing home wouldn't have prevented it. But you need supervision. Medical care nearby. Mom, please be reasonable. I looked at my 3 children, these strangers who'd once been my whole world. I am being reasonable. I'm making my own choices about my own life. If you can't respect that, then we have nothing else to discuss. They backed off, but I saw the resentment in their eyes, the frustration. They'd been patient, they seemed to think. They'd waited 7 years. When was I going to cooperate? I called Robert Harrison again. "I want to add something to my will." "Another change?" "No, a letter. To be read to my children after I'm gone. Can you arrange that?" "Of course." I wrote that letter longhand, in the house I'd refused to leave, at the kitchen table where I'd helped my children with their homework so many years ago. "Dear James, Patricia, and Kevin," it began. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone. You'll have gathered for my funeral, and Robert will have given you this letter along with the news about my will. I want you to know that I made these decisions with a clear mind and a full heart. I heard you that night at my 70th birthday party. I heard you planning my future without me. I heard you calculating the value of my home and the timeline of my remaining life. I heard you convince yourselves that you were doing the right thing. Maybe you believed it. Maybe you still do. But what you were really doing was trying to make your own lives easier by removing the inconvenience of an aging parent. I don't blame you for not wanting to care for me. That's not your obligation. But I do fault you for trying to take away my home, my autonomy, my right to choose how I spend my final years. I fault you for lying about my medical prognosis to justify your plans. And I fault you for forgetting that I'm a person, not just a mother, not just an inheritance. Over the past 7 years, I've found real family. People who chose to love me without obligation. Who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Who celebrated my life instead of calculating its end. I'm leaving you each $25,000. That will cover my funeral and give you a little extra. It's more than enough for children who couldn't find time to visit their mother, except when planning her institutionalization. The rest of my estate will fund scholarships for students, like Luisa's children, people who work hard, who honor their families, who understand that success isn't measured in salary but in how you treat the people who depend on you. I hope you build good lives. I hope you find people who love you the way I loved you. And I hope, when you're old and your own children are making plans, you remember this moment. You'll always be my children, but family is more than biology. Family is who shows up. With love and disappointment, Mom. I sealed that letter and gave it to Robert. When the time comes, I told him. But that time didn't come for another year. I made it to 78. I saw Sophia graduate from MIT with honors. I saw Miguel complete his first year of nursing school with a perfect GPA. I saw Luisa get promoted to charge nurse. And when my heart finally gave out quietly, in my sleep, in my own bed, in my own home, I died, knowing I'd made the right choices. My funeral was small but full. Luisa and her family, Miguel and Sophia, the scholarship recipients from the fund I'd already started funding in small amounts. Nurses from the hospital, volunteers I'd worked with, people who'd known me as Maggie, not just as someone's mother. My children were there too, of course. In the front row, dressed in black, accepting condolences, and then Robert Harrison stood up to read my will. I wish I could have seen their faces. But Luisa told me later she'd promised she would, jokingly, never thinking I'd actually die first. She said James went pale. Patricia started to cry. Kevin just sat there, stunned. The letter was read aloud. The terms of the will explained. $25,000 each. The rest, nearly $900,000 between the house sale and my savings to the Margaret Chen Scholarship Fund for first-generation students. Luisa said Patricia stood up and walked out. Kevin followed. James stayed for the whole thing. And afterward, he approached Luisa. You did this, he said. You manipulated my mother. Your mother made her own choices, Luisa said quietly. Maybe if you'd respected them while she was alive, things would be different. She was my mother. She was a person first. And you forgot that. Luisa told me she walked away then, back to where Miguel and Sophia were waiting. And she cried. Not for the money, she'd had no idea about the will until that moment, but for me, for the mother I'd been and the friend I'd become. The scholarship fund thrives. In the 10 years since my death, it's put 43 students through college. Nurses, teachers, engineers, doctors, first-generation Americans, children of immigrants, kids who worked 2 jobs to pay for books and still found time to volunteer. Sophia is on the board now, managing the fund with the same mathematical precision she brought to her MIT degree. Miguel helps interview applicants, understanding better than anyone what it means to have someone believe in you. And Luisa? She's the fund's director, making sure every dollar goes to students who need it. Students who remind her of herself at their age, working toward a dream while supporting a family. My children contested the will. Of course they did. But it was airtight. Robert had made sure of that. Eventually, Patricia stopped fighting. She sent a letter to the fund, apologizing. She donated an additional $10,000 in my memory. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's something. Kevin sends a card every year on my birthday to the fund's office. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm sorry. Short, simple, maybe honest. James never reached out. But last year, his son, my grandson, now 30, applied for the scholarship. He got it. And in his essay, he wrote about his grandmother who taught 5th grade and believed in giving everyone a fair chance. He never met me. But somehow, he knows me. That's my legacy. Not a divided house or a balanced bank account, but changed lives. Opportunities given. Families supported. Love that multiplies instead of divides. I chose my family. And they chose me back. And in the end, that made all the difference.